Welcome back to the last panel. My name is Pernik. I'm researcher at the strategy branch of Cooperative Cyber Defense Center of Excellence here in Tallinn. And it's my great pleasure to moderate this exciting panel with our star speakers from 4 countries. So now we have the opportunity to actually hear from countries' experiences with the index and share also some of the recommendations, hopefully, how to develop it further. And personally, I was very impressed by the presentation, especially the user interface. And I do have a little background with the index itself, as I was involved with the development of it, the first version, as well as did review of Eastern Partnership countries. So it is one index among many others. Last time I calculated, I think it was between a dozen and 20 different types of maturity models and indexes. And it has its strengths and also some limitations. So of course, the strengths have been already mentioned by the previous speakers, such as it's verifiable, it offers evidence to the various legal acts, documents, websites. Also, it is very good for comparison in terms of network readiness index, etc. Also, the scope is very large. It's global, 177 countries. It's a good repository for anyone interested in cyber issues. And it allows also to compare with your neighbors. Some of the limitations maybe also have to do with the impressive kind of quantitative data, which is then that gives less room for example, peer assessment and also some maybe qualitative aspects. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our 4 speakers, and so we'll give floor to each of them for the initial remarks, and then we come back to the discussion. And I also would like to ask audience to start giving putting in the app the questions to the speakers, and also maybe some comments. So we will take that in the second part of the panel. And so we have 4 countries, as I mentioned. From Chile, we have Senator Kenneth Pugh. He's a member of Senate and also a chair of Defense Committee. And prior to being elected, I think you see him smiling there. He had a long, distinguished career in the Navy, achieving a rank of Vice Admiral. Second, we have Jakub Maderanek, and he serves as International Relations Officer at National Cyber and Information Security Agency in Czech Republic. And then 2 brilliant colleagues of mine, Dr. Claire Kwan. She's a researcher and also a co-chair of CyCon conference, and has also a number of years in cyber policy as advisory roles, as well as contributed to the NIS directive, the first version. And last but not least, Erik Kursetgjerde, who also has a rich background in private sector, in government, and in academia. So first, I would like to go to Chile, and floor is yours, Kenneth.
Thank you very much, Piret. It's a pleasure to be using the cyberspace. I live at Valparaiso, that's in the South Pacific, and my constituency goes from Rapa Nui, Easter Island, where the Moais are, to the Andes. That's a huge region, a maritime region, the same distance that is from Madrid to Moscow. So it's huge. But we are a tiny little country, but we are a tiny little country connected with fiber optic cables. When I joined the Congress, the Parliament, as a senator in 2018, as a former naval officer, I spent 37 years in service. And in my background as an electronic engineer, I tried to promote cybersecurity because we didn't have any regulation, no law, no culture, nothing. So I started asking my colleagues, my partners, in order to create first a law to promote cybersecurity culture. And it took the European examples. The October, the European Cybersecurity Month. And we created our law. It's the first one I have in 2018. But to measure, I start looking for indexes. And I found in 2018 a wonderful platform. NCSI, the National Cybersecurity Index, in those days had only tested few countries. There were a few of them. So that's why our ranking was very high because there were no many to measure. But I found an excellent interface. The design of the web page when you are from another place and you're trying to get information was very precise, very sharp to understand all the different areas, the 12 sectors, to go down to the 46 indicators there were. It really opened our eyes in order to decide to have a public policy based on data, based on evidence, not in guts, as we say in politics sometimes, where you need to have some reference. So we start analyzing it and seeing how we can achieve and use it. The first thing we noticed was the breach that we have as a digital developed country. The digital index of the country is a good measurement to say, okay, if I have so much digital development, why I don't have enough cybersecurity based on this index? So that was the first experience. It was used as an internal benchmark because Chile is a country where fiber optic, as I told, is used all around the country. Ookla, the company that has speed test, measures every second all around the world millions of connections. Ookla has, using speed test, has found for many times that the broadband fixed internet in Chile, it was the second fastest in the world after Singapore. Now we are the third fastest in the world. 88% of the population is connected to the internet. So we have a huge amount of people. We do everything. The pandemics force us to do it even faster. But we didn't have cybersecurity. And that was clear in the index. We had the first measurement in 2018 showing us that we were very developed digitally, but we didn't have cybersecurity. So it helped me in my colleagues for them to understand something they were not seeing. And that's very easy because for a politician, when you see a breach, you say, okay, well, we have a problem here. It's not a problem of technical on the firewalls or on the links you're pressing that you don't have. It's much more than that. And that's a difficult part of cybersecurity. It covers so many aspects that you need to have it. Chile then understood this and used the cybersecurity index as a short-term planning purpose. We need to achieve in these areas. We don't have nothing, and we need to report it. And that's very important because public policy should be measured by an action, a website, or an organization that you have. We also check other systems like Oxford Maturity Model, which we use it for the long term. In 2019, the year after, we created a group in the Senate to have a 12-year vision. 12 years because we have the every 4 years election. So every 4 years we have new government, at least 3 continuous governments. And with a political vision, we use a CMM, the Cyber Capacity Maturity Model. And as every maturity model, it doesn't give you an index. So it's not really an index. It's just a way that you can design your strategy to say, okay, if there are 5 levels, to arrive to level 5, the dynamic one in the Oxford maturity model, it's very difficult. It's very expensive, and most probably you will not get it. So our strategy is very simple. In 12th year, we have to be above level 4. So we have to have real capabilities, but we are going to try to be as dynamic as possible. But then it's easy when you have to find, this is for military planners, final desired state. You have to define where you would like to be in 12 more year. For them, a maturity model is good for long-term planning. For the new version, 3.0, we are really happy because in the strategic area, there are two new things that are really important for us. First one is the leadership, political leadership. And I believe that this is a political issue. Cyberspace is not only a domain, it's where all humanity now is living, because our digital life is there, and there's no way we can split it. The phygital, the physical and the digital world is part of how we do. It's not future, it's present. So we need to understand that all our relationship, the culture, the politics, democracy, should be preserved in the cyberspace. And when I say preserve human rights in the cyberspace. So that's important part to understand why we need to measure and why we need to know where we are. That's my first part, and I'm very happy to be here in the panel. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and I have to congratulate you for keeping exactly in time, 7 minutes. And I really appreciate what you brought out, that the index is useful for short term, while you use perhaps other tools for long term, and also your point about the buy-in of the political leadership, and which is definitely very important. And with that, I would like to give floor now to Jakub. Please, the floor is yours.
No, I hope you can hear me. Thank you, Piret, for your words. Yeah, I will follow with basically what Kenneth said as well, because what I found quite, let's say, spectacular even about NCSE is how user-friendly it is. I would call it like beauty in simplicity, yet complexity. Before I will kind of dive a bit deeper into case of Czech Republic and how we perceive the NCSE, I wanted to react on just really shortly on what Commander Galbraith said the panel before, because he said that if nothing else, index gives policymakers kind of overview of and like better understanding for those who are not engaged with cybersecurity on a daily basis. And I think that's one of the most important thing I also wanted to kind of underline and maybe to point out in our case, because for us the NCSC really, as it's stated on the website, it's a tool. It's a tool for assessment and for capacity building itself. Luckily enough, we are completely in a different position compared, for example, to Chile, as what has been Senator Kenneth saying a minute ago. Because back then, when you went with 2.0 version, we were created. I mean, we as a NUKIP, as an agency I come from, as a central cybersecurity agency responsible for, let's say, we are the main administrative body when it comes to ensuring cybersecurity in the Czech Republic. So we have already like second version of our cybersecurity strategy accompanied by action plan, and we are now in our third version as well. And I must say that we are kind of like go hand in hand with the updates in NCSE, because it's interesting if you look at the data stated in an index to Czech Republic, and you go year by year, and you also check the like our regulation and the changes within the methodology of the index itself, we kind of like, I don't understand how, but we comprehend each other and we go with the flow. So it's fine to see that we do a great job in this sense. And but back to the main point, that it's cybersecurity assessment. And why was I saying that we already had some strategy, etc.? Is that even though you might think that you are already like quite doing well, which basically according to index we do, which we are grateful for, it doesn't mean there are no gaps actually that needs to be filled. That's when the NCSI really help us a lot, when we, for example, need to look at what steps to take to move forward and which gaps needs to be filled. Plus, and that's maybe not every one of you are using it in this way or perceive it this way, but it's really important for us to, it helps you kind of explain the importance, explain the gaps in very way, and very understandable way for those who are responsible for decision making. I think, and it's my personal like belief as well, it's because it's evidence based comparing to other indexes. What I found really good is that it's evidence based and the evidences are pretty much clear, and there is no much going around. So for those who do not have much of time, they really can get into it and understand clearly, easily, and then make decisions. But make decisions upon information they received, and the information is evidence based. What I want that would be for example, when we going around strategies and policies. Then capacity building. We try to move forward as everyone does in cybersecurity. It's necessary to go as fast as possible, and we won't be able to do it as fast as cybersecurity does, or cybersecurity field improve or evolve. But we need to also build our capacities, but not just ours, but also as NUKIP, we kind of, in, let's say, recent years or recent period, we do engage in international capacity building. So even in this sense, it helps us a lot to understand the needs of others and to actually kind of react in a more efficient way, not just to fill the needs of others, but also to kind of understand what capacity we need to provide. So it really makes it easier. Let's say just that. I see my time is coming to an end. So for just 1 minute, I wanted to point out just one, let's say, kind of, I wouldn't say bad things, but it might be that, for example, in our case, we found out that some of part of index were not filled by, for example, our approach to cybersecurity. It differs because as it is evidence based, sometimes it's fine to hard to the level of context you can understand by doing quantitative research and quantitative indexes. It's not to discourage this approach because it's quite unique. It gives you different perspective, but it would be nice to see if there is maybe in the future some improvement in this regard. Thank you, Brett. I think that's I got like 2 seconds more, so I'll finish there.
Thank you so much, Jakub. And I really loved what you said, beauty in simplicity and complexity. So, and also it's good to hear that the index is up to date, and you see it goes hand in hand with your national developments. And I think we can go during the discussion more deeper into the what are some perhaps recommendations or regarding, you mentioned the qualitative aspects So I will not ask this question from you now, but just give floor to Dr. Claire Kwan and listening with very attentively. Well, because as I just want to say that you didn't insert data by yourself, but it was done like secondhand data. So what is your impression? It's interesting to hear compared to Kenneth and Jakub.
Thank you, Piret, and thank you for giving me the floor, and thank you for inviting me today. Just as a reminder, I am the Senior National Representative of Luxembourg at the CCDCOE. Luxembourg has had quite a long tradition in cybersecurity, so we already had our first cybersecurity strategy in 2011, and that actually predates some of the indexes that we've been talking about. At the moment, Luxembourg actively participates in 3 indices, and when I say active participation, I mean that we as a country, we fill out the questionnaires, so we just don't let these organisations do their desk research. We try to help them along by filling out the questionnaires that we're sent. So we take part in the ITU GCI, so that's the Global Cybersecurity Index of the International Telecoms Union. We also take part in this ENISA-led EU Cybersecurity Index. And finally, we also take part in the NATO Cyber Defence Pledge. And of these 3, as a country and as a good ally and member state, we're obliged to take part in the Cyber Defence Pledge questionnaire, as well as the ENISA-led questions. And we actively take part in ITU because this is something that is publicly available. So the last edition of the GCI was published in 2021, that was version 4. And Luxembourg scored joint 13th place with Germany, something that we're very happy to see. It shows that we're on a par with our peers and our neighbours. It also helps us promote brand Luxembourg. Luxembourg has a reputation for being a safe place to invest. And given that financial services are a core part of our economy, it does us a big favour to be able to show investors that we take cybersecurity seriously as a government and as a country, so people know that their investments will be safe. We just finished our questionnaire input for the next version of the GCI, version 5, which will be out next year. We have noticed that the methodology has become more rigorous, which we really recommend, because before it was more of a box-ticking exercise, and now you have to provide proof. And that increases our confidence in the findings of the ranking. However, having said that, we have to provide proof that's publicly available, that we can share. And of course, cybersecurity is a sensitive area, if not classified, and so sometimes we can't share. And that means that we don't receive credit for the work that we're doing, even though that work is good. For the NCSE, what Luxembourg thinks about this is that a massive advantage of the NCSI is the fact that it's in real time. We don't have to wait for a questionnaire that takes us several months to fill out, and then the requesting organisation takes a few more months to evaluate and to publish a report. And when that report is published, perhaps it's already 18 months, a year out of date. And so if we have a new development in Luxembourg, that means that we can send it directly to the EGA, and they will update it, and we can get our results in more real time. And as Jakub also said, we find it a simple and effective modelling for cybersecurity capacity building. It's extremely user-friendly, it's very clear. That makes it very easy for governments to see what's in it for them, and also very easy to respond because they're very clear in the questions they ask. And we also have noticed that they've introduced criteria that we've not seen in other indexes before, such as high-level cybersecurity leadership and inclusion of military cyber defence. And we know that cybersecurity, digitalisation, this is a very holistic subject, so the introduction of new areas will give us new targets, give countries new targets to aim for, and broaden their concept of cybersecurity. If we're going to be picky, Luxembourg would like to see an index or a criteria for lifelong learning, because we know that cybersecurity is constantly evolving, the threat is always changing. It's a whole of society approach, really. That's what we really need. And lifelong learning is a very good indicator or a good goal for this, because it's not just teaching children and young people, it's also teaching those older who did not grow up as digital natives how to keep themselves safe online and how to contribute to collective security. From what I've seen, Luxembourg from their desk research carried out by the EGA, scores 43rd in the NCSI compared to 13th in the ITU. And our neighbour and peer, Germany, is actually number 5. Now, there's probably very good reasons for differences for this, and I had a look at how we both score comparatively. And there's just something I'd like to add on behalf of a small country. We have 600,000 people. We do not offer undergraduate bachelor degrees because our citizens are multilingual, they go abroad to study, and they come back to Luxembourg where we offer high quality postgraduate programs because that's added value that we can have as a small country. And one of the criteria is, do you have an undergraduate bachelor program in cybersecurity? Which the answer is no. I have read that they do count vocational training, and we do have a very good 2-year full-time program in cybersecurity, the Brevet Technicien Supérieur, which counts for 120 ECTS. So that's 2/3 of what a bachelor would be. I hope this would count. Luxembourg at the moment is filling out the questionnaire so we can better help the EGA see what we do. But for vocational training, the name can mean anything from hours, days, weeks, months. And so we do hope that this counts, and just recognise that as a country of 600,000 people versus Germany, which has over 84 million inhabitants, it's difficult for us to find the economy of scale to have such programs, especially when there are such good programs very close to us. So thank you, Piret.
Yes, I totally agree, and it also underlines what was said before, that perhaps, we need more like qualitative data as well to just accompany those other indexes. So thank you very much for that, and going in depth regarding the education and explaining, differences, country-specific conditions. Now, last but not least, Erik, the floor is yours.
First of all, thanks for having me. I'm the Norwegian representative to the CCDCOE. And Norway is among the most digitalized countries in the world. And even though we are extremely densely populated, we have an internet penetration rate of over 99%. For example, I come from a village with 300 people, and we have had fiber optics for around 10 years already. And we also got 5G 2 years ago. At the same time, we have an extremely high level of the usage of digital access and digital public services, where around 88% of our population are using these services already. But we see that the digitalization of society not only gives possibilities, but also obliges the government to take responsibility to protect its citizens. So cybersecurity has therefore been an important priority for the Norwegian government. My colleague Claire mentioned the Luxembourg cybersecurity strategy from 2011. And I'm actually really proud to say that the first national strategy for Norway was already launched in 2003. We're one of the first one in the world who launched that type of national strategy in this area. So to keep up with the developments, we did a revision in 2007, 2012, and 2019. So we've been quite active in regards to the strategy development of cybersecurity policy. When it comes to the National Cybersecurity Index, in our opinion, we see that, as all other panel participants, that it offers valuable insights for benchmarking and comparing national cybersecurity readiness and how it aids in regards to identifying strengths and weaknesses. And I think also one under-communicated part is that when you're trying to have an overview over different types of countries, and you're struggling to find if they have legal acts in place, it's sort of like an encyclopedia, where you actually just can run up a country and you can see if there is an available law or strategy, which makes it a very efficient tool for especially researchers, but also countries in preparation for bilaterals and other things. So we see that the participation in the general benchmarking, it fosters global collaboration, and it encourages information sharing, which we believe is really important because it contributes to establishing the best practices on an international scale. But however, we see that the development of extensive indexes do have a really big challenge in regards to how you're doing the operationalization. And we think that the varying level, especially also on willingness and capacity among countries to contribute in these type of indexes, create an issue for accuracy and relevance. And we see that to address this, there is a need to explore strategies where you're fostering active participation and data sharing. And we see that the fact that countries who have to deal with several surveys with slightly different questions, that is one of the key issues, because when you have small institutional capacity and you need to handle maybe 10 or 12 different surveys with slightly different questions, we see that there becomes a capacity issue and a lot of countries don't actively participate. And we see that one possibility for making more countries participate in the different indexes is to simplify the amount of work and resources that are needed at the national level by coordinating the acquisition of data and how we are producing the statistics in this area. And then the different countries could actually develop standardized packages of information that would align with international recognized cybersecurity benchmarks, such as different ISOs, for example, so you can ensure a consistent and harmonized approach to data reporting across countries. And by doing this, you would also manage to facilitate a more straightforward and efficient data collection process and enable a more accurate and meaningful comparison of cybersecurity preparedness on the global stage. When it comes to Norway's experience with indexes, we must be honest to say that we haven't been particularly active, not in the ITU GCSI or the NCSI. And we have been considering especially how these indexes can fit the diversity, in both technological, economic, and cultural contexts, where we're seeing that, as my colleague from Czech Republic also mentioned, that the one-size-fits-all approach is demanding when you're trying to capture different nuances of each country's unique strengths and challenges. And I have also some concrete examples from Norway's score from the previous NCSI. For example, you will see during the indicator 1.1, when it comes to the cybersecurity policy unit, Norway scores 0, which does not reflect Norway's governmental structure and coordination for cybersecurity, upon which you have a clear responsibility in the Ministry of Justice and Public Security, where you have actually also a designated unit for security and resilience. Another example is factor number 5 on protection of digital services, where Norway also scores 0 on all of the indicators, which may seem partly inaccurate, as we already have quite big legislation in place. For example, we have the Electronic Communications Act for entities who are involved in electronic communication, which encompasses both physical and logical security, where we are addressing cybersecurity concerns. And we also have something called the Security Act, which also is designed explicitly for entities deemed critical for national security, where you also, a ministry has the authority to extend the application of this law within their sector of responsibility. So we believe that we have some of the frameworks that are being measured in the indexes in place, but we believe that they are not being reflected in the score for Norway in this index. I must be precise also to say that I haven't seen the new scoring for Norway for the new in regards to the new index, but still these are some main concerns from us. On another page, we see that as mentioned, we do not actively contribute in the NCSI or in the ITUs, but we believe that in general that in regards to make sure that countries with low institutional capacity are able to contribute more actively to make sure that the data is more accurate, we need, as I mentioned before in my intervention, we need to make sure that we have a standardization of information packages, which could pave way for a broader engagement. And we also see that as we continue to explore these challenges and opportunities, we need to more work collectively in discussing these type of indexes. And therefore, we are very grateful for the invitation here today, and we're looking forward to keep contributing more in regards to how we can make more people engage in these indexes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I totally agree with what you said, and also thank you for pointing out that there is a room for streamlining the data collection, and maybe also, again, coming back to what was said already, to have some qualitative roundtables and so on to verify those aspects. So I know that the time is running short and we have about 5 minutes to discussion. We didn't have any audience questions, but because many of you, I think almost most of you... I can ask a question when you are ready? Yes, I have plenty of questions. But I think many of you mentioned capacity building, and I would like to connect various indexes to capacity building. And for example, World Bank uses the cybersecurity maturity model in engaging with their customers. Also, we know that it's a good kind of self-assessment tool, but at the same time, if we look at the various initiatives, we can see that there are so many actors. I bring example of Ghana, where at the moment we have a global cybersecurity capacity building conference, and in that country there are 42 capacity building projects with 16 actors, and many of those are in the same sectors, which are very important sectors like cybercrime, cyber diplomacy, and crisis management. But is there a way that we can better use those tools and connect them better with the various capacity building projects? And of course, I don't know, maybe it's a too broad conclusion, but it seems to me that perhaps those countries who are more keen to have capacity building projects also are more keen to put their limited resources into those indexes, because these are the reference tools for the donors, whereas some other countries may be less inclined to do so. But I don't want to ignore, we have a very cozy atmosphere here to our virtual participants. So first, let's go to the same order. Kenneth, would you please share your impressions and experiences and advice with us?
Well, my advice will be in research, development, and innovation. We should innovate. We have to solve problems, and for that we have to create ecosystem. Innovation in defense is very good because you have both ways, dual-use technology for civilian and military world. And with innovation, you can have everybody involved, and we can find all the connections that we need. Good thing is that version 3.0 takes in account precisely this item. And with what? Like, for instance, doctorate and postdoc system. We need to investigate more, and we need to invest in people. But we have to understand this is a complete and complex ecosystem where everybody should be involved. So innovation is a way. CMM in Oxford, they have the new 3.4 aspect that covers this, but it's much more than that. And what is missing is to have a broad view in gender breach. There's a big gender breach in women. I'm very happy to have Claire. I really agree with her in the way how to build this long-term vision. But we need more women in cybersecurity. In Chile, it's less than 15%, and we cannot find. So have more women, and of course, to create a very vibrant, innovating space in cybersecurity, which will allow us to be very dynamic. That's it.
Thank you. I noted it down, innovation and gender aspects. Thank you for that. Jakub, would you jump in?
Yes, gladly. Thank you, Piret. To answer your question, whether we are somehow able to connect dots between different indexes and our capacity building efforts and projects, I would answer yes and no, because it all depends on whether we are keen to share information with each other. And then we got indexes, which are basically, and it has been already said, it's a tool for sharing information. Then my question would be, but should we use them for those efforts? Yes, indeed, please do so, because it helps you how to share info, how to spend your finances more efficient. Just that would be it.
Thank you. And now I think we have just about 1 minute, so if very briefly, Claire.
Yes, I would just like to say that Luxembourg, along with Estonia and Germany, actually founded a project called EU CyberNet, where they get people who work in a development cooperation and cyber capacity building to sit together and try and streamline their projects, perhaps either collaborate on projects or give one country the lead on a project to try and reduce the duplication in cyber capacity building when it comes to our development assistance. And then when it comes to the indices, I think it really depends very much what a country wants to get out of it. If you want to see how mature you are now, perhaps the CMM is a better choice. But if you want to do some signaling about, like Luxembourg does, about our reputation as a place of high cyber development and capacity, perhaps the ITU one is better. So I think a country really needs to decide what they want to get out of it. Is it for external or is it internal for reference and benchmarking? Thank you.
That's very useful. Thank you. And Erik, do you have anything to add?
Actually, when it comes to the information sharing and the willingness, I was involved in the CMM project before, some years ago, and we had very close dialogue with the ITU index as well. So there is possibility to use, as long as there's willingness to share, there is a possibility to have a closer cooperation around, especially against countries where they are struggling with institutional capacity and you need to use the data you already have. So as I mentioned before, I believe that we need to look more into the standardization part, because in that way it can actually be realistic to get the information you need.
Thank you very much. And with that, we conclude our panel.